Holla Peeps, it's your girl Schree, reporting live for SchreeTV. Now I'm working on a fuzzy poster. Making this for Big Bob for his truck. It says, "Long live rock and roll," as I'm listening to the trial.
Walk briskly, just a sense of that.
I was carefully walking. I didn't just walk up on the scene, see what was going on.
Well, sure, you heard a gunshot, right? You take some precautions, I would think.
Yes.
So you had a flashlight, and obviously you had your cell phone. And your best estimate is that it was somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds from when you heard the shot as to when you got to where you could actually see something.
Yes.
At first, you didn't see Trayvon Martin's body, correct?
Correct.
What you saw instead, or what caught your attention first, actually, what may have caught your attention first was the little flashlight that was on.
No.
What caught your attention first was George Zimmerman.
Yes.
And when you saw him there, he was breathing hard.
Yes.
He was staggering.
Yes.
And it looked to you like he'd just gotten his butt beat.
Yes.
And you approached him.
Yes.
You weren't fearful of him.
No.
Didn't turn the other way to call the police.
I had asked him to let me call the police.
Well, I'm saying yourself. As you approached, you saw him, you knew there was a gunshot. You didn't turn to call the police yourself.
Right.
And when you got closer to Mr. Zimmerman, you asked him, in fact, do I need to call the police?
Yes.
And you, and he told you, no, I already called them, or something to that effect.
Yes.
And you didn't know yourself at that moment whether he was talking about the call that he tried to be making, or was on the phone, or whether he had called them himself 2, 3, 4 minutes before.
Never mind that.
Your assumption was that when you saw him on the phone at that point, with the phone up to his ear, that he had been talking to the police.
Yes.
But of course, all of that would have had to have taken place within the 10 to 20 seconds that it took you to get there before you saw him, after the shot.
Correct.
So he would have had to have placed the call to the police. He would have had to have called the police, waited for the call to connect, and then had the conversation with the police, have that over by the time you asked him, do you want me to call the police?
I'm not aware of that. I mean, he wasn't talking on the phone. He just, as I came around the corner, he had just had the phone to his ear.
Right. And you learned very soon thereafter that he wanted you to tell his wife about being involved in a shooting.
Yes.
You'll love it.
He was trying to catch his breath, and he asked you, in fact, am I bleeding?
Yes.
And you know noticed that indeed he was. He was bleeding from his face.
Yes.
It looked like his nose was dripping.
Yes.
And then he kind of scooped over like this, as if trying to collect himself.
No, he just squatted down. He didn't stoop down like that. He just...
Like this?
Yeah.
As if trying to collect himself.
I wanted to collect himself, but I guess so. I don't know. But he did squat down.
No, did you say that in a prior statement, that he thought he kind of stooped down to try to collect
I
himself?
believe I said he squatted down.
I don't mean, I'm not squat versus stoop, but that he bent down in some way
Yes.
to try to collect himself. He was breathing hard. He looked like he just got his butt beat.
Yes.
He did.
Yeah.
Sure. So at that point, you could actually see that he was also bleeding from the back of his head.
Yes.
You hadn't noticed that before.
No.
And you had your flashlight and you had your cell phone with you.
Yes.
And you took that opportunity to take the picture of the back of his head. Is this picture?
Yes.
So as Mr. Zimmerman kind of squatted down to collect himself, you took it upon yourself to take the picture.
Yes.
He didn't ask you to take the picture.
No.
Thankfully you did, but that was your decision.
Yes.
You also asked him what happened.
Yes.
And he said, this guy was beating me up and I shot him.
And I was defending myself and I shot him.
I'm sorry.
I was defending myself and I shot him.
So this guy was beating me up, I was defending myself and I shot him, is what he told you.
Yes.
Without hesitation.
No.
And from what you could tell at the moment, it seemed completely true.
Yes.
It wasn't very long until the police arrived. You were standing there talking to Mr. Zimmerman as he tried to collect himself, and shortly thereafter, Officer Tim Smith of the Sanford Police Department got there, correct?
I didn't know his name.
Well,
Yes, right.
right. A police officer, within a very short time, the first police officer arrived,
Right.
and he had a flashlight.
I don't remember he had a flashlight.
You don't remember the next person after you arriving with a flashlight?
I know it was a police officer, but I don't remember the flashlight because I already had mine on.
Right, you could see from your own flashlight,
Yes.
but it was really, really dark out there.
Yes.
So Officer Smith will use that for our purposes, or the first officer arrived, and he said, who shot him?
Yes.
And George Zimmerman immediately said, I did.
Yes.
And Officer Smith said, do you have a gun? Or something to that effect.
Yes.
And George Zimmerman immediately complied by raising his arms, or his right arm, and exposed the firearm that was in the holster on his right side.
Yes.
And then Officer Smith's response or react.
What?
He basically made himself available to be cuffed behind the back.
Yes.
In the meantime, while George Zimmerman was in the process of being cuffed, he wanted you to call his wife.
Yes.
And in the process of him being cuffed and wanting you to call his wife, he put the phone on the ground.
Yes.
He couldn't very well do much since he was in the process of being cuffed other than that, correct?
Right.
So your purpose at that point was to let his wife know that her husband had been involved in a shooting.
Yes.
And indeed, that's what you did.
Yes.
You called and had a conversation with the person on the other end that you believed to be his wife.
Yes.
And your statement to her was, your husband's been involved in a shooting.
Yes.
And he's going to be taken in for questioning.
Yes.
And you were beginning to explain a little bit when Mr. Zimmerman, in the process of being handcuffed, said, "Just tell her I shot someone." Correct? And that's to make it absolutely clear that he wasn't the one who had been shot, and that he was You suggested a moment in your direct that he may have been abrupt. And abrupt by saying, basically, just get to the point.
Yes.
The point being that he wasn't shot. Someone else had been shot.
Yes.
All right, while there's a little pause, let's take another quick break. We'll resume our coverage of the cross-examination of this witness who heard that gunshot that killed Trayvon Martin right afterwards.
Computer that didn't get stolen, keeping priceless photos and financial records safe. This is the reason why. Take advantage of ADT summer savings. Starting at $49 installed. Hurry, offer ends July 8th. ADT, always there.
Closed captioning hours provided by Invent Health.
I'm investor shark Kevin Aaron. Do you have an idea for a new product and like to try to get it from companies for their review? Call Invent Health today. Free information.
Or none.
Right.
And Mr. Zimmerman wasn't either of those.
Right.
He was pointed, correct, in his response, just tell her I shot someone.
Yes.
He was also compliant with the police officer so that he did understand what was being said.
Yes.
And what struck you was that he was not...
Long live rock and roll, baby.
Kind of flat. That's what you mean, didn't appear to be in shock, he was just kind of flat.
Yes.
So that's what you took to mean that he wasn't in shock.
Right.
Not that you have any particular training or experience in identifying when people are in shock.
Right.
I take it this isn't something that you've been involved in very many times in your life, if ever before.
Right.
While you were just something that reminded me here, you don't attend any of the HOA meetings yourself.
No.
You don't involve yourself in the community itself.
No.
With your work and family and all the stuff you've got going on, you don't attend meetings or participate in programs like Neighborhood Watch.
No.
Your view, at least at that point in your life in that community, was you just sort of mind your own business, go to work, and do what you need to do to support your family.
Right, and if there's ever a problem, because there's a sign up there, it's Neighborhood Watch. If there was ever a problem, you just call 911.
Mm-hmm. So when you come into the community, then there's a sign that says Neighborhood Watch, correct?
Yes.
And I suppose that means that somebody coming into the community to steal stuff or to hurt people would see that, presumably, and think that there's somebody there that may be watching them.
I wouldn't think that's what it meant. I would think it would have meant that people in the neighborhood would work together. If there was a problem, you call 911 if there was a problem. But not necessarily for a warning for would-be criminals to come in there to...
You don't think that was kind of like having a security alarm company sign in the front yard, not actually having a system?
I don't really thought about that, no.
Your perspective was it just reminds people that if they see a problem, they should call 911.
Right.
You're familiar that the Community Neighborhood Watch program involves more communication, more contact among neighbors, guidance as to what they should do, not if it's just an emergency that would require a 911 call, but what to do in a suspicious circumstance by calling a non-emergency number.
I don't understand.
Just you didn't know what was going on in the community specifically with Neighborhood Watch.
Right.
Martin lying on the ground following the shot. Those are in evidence as 77 and 78. Could we,
Okay, peeps, we're over.
first of all,
More SchreeTV coming up for you soon. We're still working on the fuzzy poster.
Position that's shown
Holla.
in the photograph
Love you
is
guys.
the